and there wasn't time to fit it into the last part, but it makes a good beginning to this one. Vylon automatically talks to Sigurd once he gets within range. But for reasons you'll soon discover, you want it to happen while there are no enemies around. But, unfortunately, although as you probably suspected, he dies anyway. But, not without giving you this. And that's why you need to save him so desperately. Now, you receive Sigurd's legendary weapon. Unfortunately, it's broken. And that's why I've been saying for, well, quite a while now that Sigurd needs a lot of gold at this point. So, as trying to get as close to 50,000 as you can. Because he will now have to head back to the castle very quickly and repair it. And, yeah, like I said before, you want to make sure that Vylon initiates that conversation while there are no enemies around. The reason is that Sigurd automatically equips the Tyrfing once he gets it, and since it's broken, that's not good if he gets attacked. Now, these enemies are comprised of the same types as the ones before, but in this case you can actually use the forests. Now, of course, if Sigurd has a return ring, it's easy. If not, you'll want to use return stuff on him ASAP. I think Ira has enough speed to avoid getting hit by those incoming Axe Knights. Wow, those bandits give you a lot of experience. I'm going to have Levin visit this village because the extra gold will help when it comes to repairing Holseti. And this village conversation isn't all that significant, but most of the others are. Now, these enemies coming up, for some reason, they shouldn't be that hard, technically speaking, but they have this annoying habit of... well, it's kind of difficult to explain. Basically, there's this Japanese term used by fans of the series, Yatsuke Make, which apparently means when a character gets attacked by a huge amount of enemies in the enemy phase, and they each only do a tiny amount of damage to them, and then get killed. But because there's so many, the character eventually ends up dying due to the accumulated amounts of small damage. And yes, the Japanese fan base has one term for that exact situation. Pretty weird. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, the enemies in this chapter are experts at doing exactly that to you. That one wasn't too significant either, but there are some that are. So, basically, what I tend to find is that if you put someone in range of all of those Axe Knights at once, and that character doesn't have high enough avoid to reduce their hit chance to 0, the enemies will gang up on them and they might die. That's happened to Holland and Fury for me when I attempted this chapter. So, just a word of warning there. That's why I like to make sure that nobody is in range of all of these guys at once, because they tend to like ganging up on you. See here, okay, the enemies only have 11% hit chance on Holland, but if all of them attack him at once, that might be enough to kill him. So I've made sure that only a few can. And what is it with enemies and attacking Holland? Of course, at this point, he's powerful enough to just about kill anything that attacks him. And now that I've got that out of the way, a bit late to be explaining that village I visited previously. Yeah, it basically explains how stat growths are inherited by the children of the second generation. The exact calculations are the male child inherits the father's growths plus half of the mother's, and the female inherits the mother's plus half of the father's. As for their actual base stats, the inheritance is a lot more complicated. But you should basically know that the higher the stats that the parents finish with at the end of the first generation, the higher the stats of their children when you get them in the second generation. They're only very, very slight increases. But now, finally, Sigurd can repair the Tyrfing. And it'll cost 50,000 gold to restore it to its full uses, but you just need to get close to there. Hopefully, you want to have enough so that he will not need to repair it again this chapter. Make sure to equip it now, and yes, look at those stat boosts. That's pretty freaking powerful. The main one is the plus 20 resistance, because remember before I kept saying how Sigurd hates getting attacked by mages, and those are the only things that really have a chance of killing him? Not anymore. In fact, now he's become one of the best mage killers in the game. Which reminds me, there's a lot of debate over who the strongest main character in the series is. It's generally between Sigurd and Radiant Dawn Ike. They're both pretty similar in terms of how powerful they are. Mainly the fact that they both start off and end up extremely powerful. But I tend to more lean towards Sigurd because Ike is still a bit weak to mages even later in the game, whereas Sigurd, well, he gets a weapon that totally eliminates his one weakness. Ike does get 1 to 2 range and an infinite use weapon, so it's still pretty close, but I think Sigurd beats him out ever so slightly in the end. Now that we've weathered that initial attack, we can just pick these guys off one by one. Now the reason why these guys are getting such high hit rates is probably because of their leadership bonus. Oh yes! Oh yes, come on. Epic critical animation. It's a shame you don't see the Swordmaster / hero critical animations a lot in this game, but when you do, they're awesome. You'll generally only get to see them when you get a 50 kill weapon. Because, as I've said before, Swordmasters don't have a critical bonus in this game. In fact, if I recall correctly, they didn't start getting a critical bonus until Sword of Seals. Although in that case it was a massive, I think 30% or something. And then that got nerfed later on. which I think was fine, but Shadow Dragon nerfed it way too much. Nah, just use Holseti. Another critical bonus. Of course, Levin already has the critical skill, so it's not really that useful, but it's cool when it does activate. And that just about ends the threat of these guys. Of course, the next group of enemies is a lot more problematic.